What is up? It's Alex from Double Move Sports back with week 3 start sits for the running back position. I'm going to be breaking down every single running back you're considering starting for week 3 for every single matchup. Hit that like button, subscribe to the channel if you like the content. Also, if you've got more start sit questions, if you got two guys that I'm telling you to start on today's video that you have to decide between, jump in that Discord in the link below. Absolutely free to join. That's where Stef and I are hanging out, answering start sit questions, trade questions, any fantasy football questions you got 24/7. We're in there. We got a great community as well. Free to join. So hop in that Discord link. But let's go ahead and get started. We got a lot of players and a lot of matchups to get through. And we start out with the Thursday night game, Panthers at the Texans. The over-under is at 43 points. Carolina is favored. No surprise there with Davis Mills getting the start. And at the running back position, Panthers, you're starting Christian McCaffrey. And for the Texans, you're sitting all three guys. Mark Ingram, Phillip Lindsay, David Johnson. They're all sits in this game. It's an inefficient, nasty three-way timeshare. So there's no way I'm rolling any of them out there this week. And the Panthers defense has actually been pretty good as well. So easy sits for the Texans and an easy start for Christian McCaffrey. But we'll go ahead and move on to the Colts at the Titans. 48-point over-under in this one. Tennessee's favorite at home. Still unclear on whether Carson Wentz is going to play in this game or not. But for the Tennessee Titans, we'll start there because it's simple. Derrick Henry, after last week especially, you're putting him back in your lineup. And for the Colts, I'm still willing to start Jonathan Taylor. I think they're going to continue to rely on the ground game, and the volume was still solid last week. Just got a bit unlucky not being able to punch it into the end zone with a couple of chances. So JT is still a start. And Nyheim Hines is a sit. We've already seen the Nyheim Hines experience this season, a solid week 1, a disappointing week 2. So with a hobbled or potentially no Carson Wentz at the time of this recording, we still don't know, I'm sitting Nyheim Hines in this matchup. Next up on the list, we have the Washington football team at the Buffalo Bills. 45.5-point over-under here. Bills, no question, favored at home. We'll start out with the Washington side of the ball. Antonio Gibson is still a start for me. He's a buy low candidate, and the volume has still been there. So he's someone I'm still locking into the lineup, even against a tough Buffalo defense. Gibson is a must start until further notice. And J.D. McKissic, I think he's a desperation start in PPR leagues. In week 2, we saw the upside, but he still only had 4 carries and 6 targets. So we can't expect him to turn 4 carries and 6 targets into 20 fantasy points every single week. But if you're in a deep league and you just need someone to stream, I think you can roll McKissic out there as an absolute desperation deep start. And for Buffalo, I'm sitting both Devin Singletary and Zach Moss. Singletary's been solid so far. I think he's a sell high if you've got him right now. The breakaway run in week 2 really saved his day, and it's a tough Washington defense, so he's a sit. And Zach Moss just got some garbage time cleanup touchdowns. Didn't look efficient, didn't look great, so he's a sit for me as well. Next game we're going to talk about is the Bears at the Browns. 46.5-point over-under in this game as of now. Cleveland is favored by a little over a touchdown at home. So we'll start out with the Bears because it's easy. It's David Montgomery. You're starting him. You're rolling him out there every single week at this point. And then for Cleveland, Nick Chubb is an auto start. And I think Kareem Hunt is someone you can start in this game. He's been involved early this season. So I think you can keep rolling Hunt out there, especially in PPR leagues. So a lot of running back value to be found in this game. Next up, we have the Ravens at the Lions. Baltimore, heavy favorite in this one. Pretty high over under 49.5 points at the time of this recording here. And we'll start out with Baltimore because Tyson Williams is someone I've kind of been fading so far this season. But in this matchup against the Lions, I do think he is a start. He had 13 carries in week 2. I'm hopeful he gets the touchdown here against Detroit. He almost had that touchdown in week 2, fumbled it, and then it was recovered in the end zone by Baltimore. So Tyson, if he can get you those 10, 12 carries, maybe a target or 2 as well. He's kind of touchdown or bust at this point, very TD dependent. But I do expect him to get one this week against the Lions, so I'm willing to start him. And Latavius Murray is a sit for me at this point. He's touchdown or bust as well, but even if he gets the touchdown, there's not a lot of additional upside there. And then for the Lions, DeAndre Swift is a start. He's involved in PPR leagues. They're going to be trailing again in this game, so I expect him to be used heavily in the passing game and to give you a nice floor in those PPR formats. So Swift is a start, and Jamal Williams is a sit. I think he is a flex name you can consider on a week in, week out basis, but against Baltimore, I'm fading him. He only had 7 carries and 3 targets in week 2. I'm not expecting him to get into the end zone in this game. That could save his day if he does, but I'm sitting Jamal Williams. Next game we're going to hit on is the Chargers at the Chiefs. Very high over-under here, 55.5 points. And this one is very, very simple. Austin Eckler, you're starting. Clyde Edwards-Helaire, a little trickier, but you're still starting him. 13 carries in week 2. The 0 targets were the concern. So CEH needs to get some receiving work. I expect him to start getting targeted a little bit in the passing game, but on a high-powered offense, he is the starting running back. He's still someone you have to start. You might just have to adjust down your expectations a little bit with CEH. Next, we've got the Saints at the Patriots. Low over-under here, 41.5 points. This one could be a grinded-out game. Alvin Kamara is still an every week start. I know it was disappointing in week 2, but you're still starting him. And for the Patriots, I think you can start Damian Harris. 16 carries in week 2 after over 20 carries in week 1. He's getting the work, not super involved in the passing game, but with that volume, he's someone you can start at the running back spot. And James White, I think, is actually a start in this game. I think it could be a little bit more competitive than their week 2 game against the Jets. And in that game, he saw 5 carries and 6 targets. And that was in a run-heavy game script. So I think White is a floor play. If you want someone that can get you 4 or 5 receptions in a PPR league and guarantee you 8-10 points at that running back spot, I think White is your guy in week 3. Next, we got the Falcons at the Giants. Surprisingly, the Giants are actually favored in this game. I know it's at home. It's a pretty high over-under at 48 points. And we'll start out with the Giants. Saquon Barkley is a start. I think this is the breakout week for him. I think if you bought low on him to this point, this is where you will be rewarded for that move. And then for Atlanta, I think Mike Davis is someone you can start. This is a volume play. Hasn't been crazy efficient, but in week 2 saw 9 carries, 7 targets. You love to see that from the running back spot with those targets. This could be a back and forth game, so I do think he'll be involved. Cordarrelle Patterson's interesting. I think he should be stashed on benches right now. He saw 7 carries and 6 targets in week 2, just a step behind Davis in each category. He was able to get the touchdowns, but those touchdowns could bounce back and forth each and every week. So I think Davis is still the start in the Atlanta backfield, but Patterson is definitely getting interesting and should be stashed on your bench. Next, we have the AFC North battle between the Bengals and the Steelers. This one's in Pittsburgh. Pittsburgh's favored in this game. It's very simple as well at the running back spot. Joe Mixon, Najee Harris, both workhorses, both must-start options. And hopefully they get the volume in this game and the targets as well, as we've been seeing over the past couple weeks, and they continue to play well this season. Mixon a little bit more disappointing in week 2, but I do think he bounces back, even though he is playing a tough Pittsburgh Steelers defense.
Wait, Alex, I have to stop the show because I'm dumb hyped over this new sponsorship deal we got. Shout out to our guys over at Manscaped. And look, I was skeptical, but Alex, you know I've been a very hairy guy for a long time. I was the kid at 13 years old in middle school.
Oh, yeah.
With chest hair showing out of the polo shirt. Like, I was that dude.
I was jealous at the time.
Well, nothing to be jealous over anymore because ever since I got this lawnmower 4.0 from them, it's been clean down there to say the least.
Manscaped has the lawnmower 4.0, not the 1, not the 2, not the 3, but the 4.0. Talk about sleepers on our show, and this has to be one of the best sleeper products out there. I was skeptical as well, and it's been an absolute game changer. Check out Manscaped. This thing is legit, and you will definitely not be disappointed by this full body trimmer. It's incredible.
So Manscaped was nice enough to give us a 20% off discount code for the Double Move Sports viewers. You can get 20% off and free shipping with code DMS at manscaped.com. That's 20% off with free shipping at manscaped.com. Use code DMS, unlock your confidence, and always use the right tools for the job with Manscaped. Now back to the show.
Next up, we have the Cardinals at the Jaguars. 52-point over-under. Arizona's been an absolute blast to watch so far this season. We'll start with the Cardinals. Chase Edmonds is a start. He's another one of those PPR backs. That's a floor play. 8 carries and 5 targets in week 2. Also saw pretty good workload in week 1. With those targets, he's going to give you enough value to work his way into the starting lineup, especially on a high-powered offense. So Edmonds is a start in PPR formats. James Conner is a sit. I liked the volume he got week 1, stepped back to 8 carries in week 2. Can't be trusted at this point. I think he still is worth stashing on your bench to see what happens, to see if he starts getting into the end zone. But for this week against Jacksonville, he is a sit. And for the Jaguars, we have James Robinson, who's been really disappointing so far this season. But I think you still start him. A little bit better matchup this week. He had Denver last week. He still had 11 carries and 3 targets in that game. So I know the volume hasn't been the workhorse volume he saw in 2020, but J-Rob is still a start for me until further notice. Next, we've got the Jets at the Broncos. Another low over-under, 41 points in this game. Denver is the massive favorite by 11 points. And we'll start with the New York Jets. Tevin Coleman is a sit. Very disappointing so far this season. Ty Johnson is a sit, although he did have a pretty solid game in week 2, but he's not quite fantasy relevant yet, especially in a tough matchup. And Michael Carter is someone that's getting interesting. Stepped up and got 11 carries and 3 targets last week against New England. I'm still sitting Michael Carter, but if he was dropped in a league, if he is on your bench, he is someone to hang on to, keep him stashed. I don't know if it's going to happen this week against Denver, but if he continues to increase his touches, Carter could get interesting as the season goes along. And we'll flip to the Denver side of the ball. Similar situation to last week. I expect them to lead in this game. It's a weak defense for the Jets. So Melvin Gordon and Javonte Williams are both starts for me. Kind of disappointing in week 2 against Jacksonville, even though both got a decent amount of volume in that game. Neither got in the end zone, which really killed their day from a fantasy perspective. But I'm betting on the Broncos having a rushing touchdown in week 3. Not sure if it's going to be Melvin or Javonte, but I think both are still startable with that touchdown upside. Next up, we've got the Dolphins at the Raiders, 45-point over-under in this one. The Raiders are favored by 3.5 points at this point. Now, there's some questionable quarterbacks in this game on whether or not they're going to play, so I'm expecting this line to potentially shift as the week goes along. And we'll start with Vegas. Josh Jacobs is a start if he's healthy. The start sit at the running back spot for this game all really hinges on Jacobs. If he's out there, I'm willing to play him. And if he's not, I'm willing to play Kenyon Drake. So I'm only playing one Raiders running back. If Jacobs is active, I'm sitting Kenyon Drake. If Jacobs is inactive, I'm willing to start Kenyon Drake in PPR formats. And it's as simple as that. And on the Dolphins side of the ball, I still think Myles Gaskin is a start. He's in that Chase Edmonds, that James White tier, probably a step above White, a step below Edmonds. Just going to be involved on the ground. He's going to get some carries, but he also adds that PPR floor in the passing game. So Myles Gaskin is still a start for me as an RB2 or a flex this week. Moving on to one of the most fun games of the week, the Bucs at the Rams. This line has been moving a little bit, 55.5-point over under. Last I checked, the Bucs are favored in this game by 1 point. That is actually flipped. I think it was originally the LA Rams favored by 1 point, but this is going to be an absolute shootout, a fun game between two great teams. We'll start with the Rams. It all comes down to Darrell Henderson. I don't know if we're going to have an outlook on him until game day. At this point, at the time that I'm recording this video, we still don't know if he's going to be active or not. There is some optimism. So if Henderson's in, you're starting him in this game, and you're sitting Sony Michel. Now, if Darrell Henderson is out in this game, I am willing to plug Sony Michel in as an RB2 or a flex option. And then on the Bucs side of the ball, Leonard Fournette's a start. He's been the RB1 so far this season for Tampa. He's really taken that lead role in the backfield. He's averaging 10 carries and 5 targets a game through the first 2 games. You'll love to see that. Good volume on the ground, involved in the passing game. Hasn't gotten in the end zone, but he gives you a pretty good floor with that volume. And Ronald Jones is a sit, only 5 carries and 1 target a game through 2 weeks. So I'm sitting Rojo until further notice. A couple more games to get through here. Next up is the Seahawks at the Vikings. Another shootout expected from Vegas with a 55.5-point over-under. Seattle is the 2-point favorite on the road in Minnesota. And we'll keep it easy from a start-sit standpoint. Chris Carson is a start. He had the 2 touchdowns last week that really saved his day, but he still is a start. And Dalvin Cook is an auto start every single week. So with that, we'll go ahead and move on to the Packers at the 49ers on Sunday Night Football. 49.5-point over under. San Francisco favored in this game at home. Interesting. We'll start with Green Bay because it's pretty simple. You're starting Aaron Jones, you're sitting A.J. Dillon. And then for the 49ers, I am starting Elijah Mitchell if he's active. If he's active and healthy for this game, I'm willing to put him in my lineup, and I'm sitting everybody else. If Trey Sermon ends up being active, not trusting him. If one of these guys that they're bringing in this week ends up being active, I'm not starting them. So if Elijah Mitchell is active, you're starting him. And outside of that, not a lot of running backs to get behind in this game. So last but not least, we have the Eagles at the Cowboys on Monday night. Dallas is favored at home in this game, a pretty high over-under as well at 51.5. We'll start with Dallas. Ezekiel Elliott is a start, 16 carries in week 2, someone you can roll out there against a weaker Eagles defense. And I think the more interesting name for Dallas is Tony Pollard. I think you can start him this week. I've loved what I've seen from him from an explosiveness perspective. He's getting involved on the offensive side of the ball as well. The snaps still aren't there, but when he's on the field, he's getting touches. Now with Michael Gallup out, with Amari Cooper a little banged up, I think we could actually see Pollard and Zeke on the field a lot at the same time. So I'm willing to start Tony Pollard in week 3. And for Philadelphia, you're starting Miles Sanders. I know he disappointed in week 2, but he's still averaging 14 carries and 3 targets a game through 2 weeks. You'll love to see that volume from the running back position. The matchup doesn't scare you against Dallas either. And you're still sitting Kenny Gainwell. Interesting handcuff option, a guy to stash on the bench, but you're not wanting to roll him into your lineup in week 3. So I'm going to wrap up with my start of the week. This seems chalk, but it's really not when you think about what's happened so far this season. I'm going Saquon Barkley against the Atlanta Falcons. I believe in Saquon. The snaps came up in week 2. It was just a tough matchup against Washington. So against the Atlanta Falcons, I do think this is the bounce back week for Saquon Barkley, and we're going to see him put up a really, really strong performance. So that's going to do it for my running back start sits. Again, if you have more questions about 2 specific players or your lineup or your roster or trades you should make, trades you've been offered, things like that, just hop in that Discord in the link below, absolutely free. We'll be in there hanging out, answering questions throughout the weekend. But again, this is Alex from Double Move Sports, and we'll see you next time.